Nobody expects to find a desert when they visit Japan, but here it is. So if you've got taste and want something more spectacular than bamboo forests, temples, or Team Lab's newest Christmas illuminations, Tottori is your shortcut to a more imaginative kind of trip. And these sand dunes are probably also the oldest thing you'll see on your trip. They've taken 100,000 years to get into this shape, a lot longer than it takes to get here. So give them a little respect. Block out a day or two on your itinerary to travel up and properly explore the strange curves and peaks of another planet right here in Japan. In Tottori, you can only see a small section, but the dunes actually stretch out for 10 miles along the coast as part of a larger national park. Some of the dunes are up to 50 meters high too, so although slopes may look easy to your eye, your legs may well complain when you give climbing a go. Take it steady and don't be a hero. Set off on the long hike across the plain and head to the top of the hill known as Umanose, aka the horse's back. Then look straight out north into the Sea of Japan and think about this. If you suddenly grew wings, or more realistically, had epic swimming skills, go in this direction and eventually you'd arrive in Russia. Now, it might look like a desert, but strangely, there's plenty of water hiding under the sand, so it isn't bone dry at all. Sometimes you can find little pools of water on the surface, but don't think that this place doesn't act like a desert. On the hottest days of Japan's ferocious summer, the sand gets up to a scorching 50 degrees Celsius. So if you're wondering, any season that isn't summer is the best time to visit, unless of course you're a fan of heat stroke. Now, most tourist attractions tend to annoy the locals just a bit, and the sand dunes are no exception. But it's not the visitors that are the problem. It's the sand itself. And this explains why you'll find these sand fences up on the edge of the dunes. For 70 years, the locals have been working hard to keep the dunes from getting any bigger. And that's what all the pine trees are doing, and apparently it's working, since the dunes are now 12% smaller than they used to be. Now, to help you enjoy this otherworldly landscape, here are a few insider tips before we get on to talking about how to get to Tottori. The chief weapon for getting to the dunes is a 25-minute bus ride from Tottori Station. I will warn you though, there aren't that many buses, so make sure you check the return times in advance, unless of course you really like nasty surprises. Happily though, there are plenty of taxis, and what I ended up doing was taking the bus first and hopping in a cab to get back to the station. It's so much easier, and flagging a taxi down is actually really easy here. If you're at all picky about getting sand in your shoes, helpfully, you can actually rent rubber boots over at Sakyu Kaikan. Yes, that's a thing in Japan. So once you realise that high heels won't quite cut it on sand, there's no need to cry about it. Even though it might make the most incredible photo that's going to get you a 1-second dopamine hit, you're not allowed to swim in the sea here. And you also can't write or draw in the sand, unless of course you really want to be relieved of a huge wedge of cash. Thankfully though, Tottori isn't a total killjoy and it does allow for some fun. You can totally fly drones over the dunes, but of course this is Japan and you do need to follow some rules and do some paperwork at the visitor centre before you start. But it's worth it, don't you think? Now, if you think this video is helpful, then let YouTube know by hitting the thumbs up. And if you want more ideas on incredible places to visit on your trip, go sign up for my insider email too. The link is down in the pinned comment. So let's talk about how to get here. Tottori is right up on the north coast of Japan's main island. And since bullet trains don't come up here, it's definitely a bit more remote. But don't let that put you off. Getting here by train is comically straightforward, even though it's a bit slower. There's the direct limited express called Super Hakuto that gets you here from Kyoto in 3 hours, or 2.5 if you come from Osaka. The other easy route is to come in on the limited express Super Inaba that takes about 2 hours. And by the way, these trains aren't called super because they're lightning fast. They only do about 80 miles an hour max. Anyway, crucially, both of these trains only have reserved seating, so you have to make sure to go to the ticket office or the machine just a couple of days maybe beforehand to get sorted out. Both of the trains are included in several popular rail passes, including the Kansai Hiroshima and the Kansai Wide passes from JR West. I've made videos all about those passes, so check the links down in the description. Now, although both of these trains are super comfy, I feel like about 2 hours is probably the sweet spot when you're taking a ride. So ideally, you want to stay in maybe Kobe or Osaka the night before and get on board there. Having said all that, I totally loved the long 3-hour journey on the Super Hakuto from Kyoto, despite it meaning that I had to get up at silly o'clock to get on the train at 7. And I say love because these express trains give you a taste of travel from a Japan from time gone by, before the bullet train. It's a surefire way of getting into the real local Japan and seeing who lives and works out there. Plus, you can depend on catching some great scenery out of the window as long as you remembered to properly caffeine up back at the hotel. Now, when you plan a trip up here, I think you really should consider stopping over for at least one night. A one-day trip is doable, but a 4 or 6 hour round trip in one day I think is a criminal waste of the destination. Besides, there are some real superstar reasons to spend more time up on the north coast in the Tottori area, and I'll get into those a bit later in this video. Now, while you're here at the dunes, you might spot this chairlift and think, that looks like a lot of fun. I bet you can see a lot from up there. Well, that's what I thought, but honestly, I found it quite disappointing. You don't get an amazing view of the dunes at all. You really just see more of the pine trees than anything else. It's not a total loss though. Sakyu Center Miharashi no Oka is at the other end of the lift. And pro tip here, if you skip the souvenir shop and head upstairs, there's a terrace with some much better views of the dunes. There's also a highly rated restaurant there, and it's a great place to stop off for lunch, especially if you love seafood. If you feel like pretending to be someplace you're not, camels are on hand to help you out, along with bucket loads of cringe. The other much more impressive tourist trap though is the Sand Museum, which is filled with some pretty staggering sand sculptures that change every year. But if you've taken the time to travel up here, I really think you should do something slightly more exciting that also involves seeing more of the dunes. Paragliding is a bit of a no-brainer here, and it's relatively easy for anybody to do. Getting up into the air is pretty perfect as a way of understanding the sheer scale of the landscape. If you're not a big fan of heights, then not to worry. You can keep your feet on the ground and still get an adrenaline fix by going sandboarding or sand sliding and making good use of the steep incline on the dunes. But if you want to explore the habitat of the dunes more deeply, as well as adding some speed to your life, my choice is always going to be a Segway tour. The route takes you through a forester's section at the edge of the dunes, so you can visit viewpoints you can't normally get to. At the end, there's plenty of time to let the lead out and roam as fast as you dare in a specially created play area. Now, since the dunes are heavily protected by the authorities, the tour only follows routes that protect the habitat, so you're not allowed to just go wherever you want. They worked closely with the local government to figure out where was good to use and where they couldn't go. But as a way of learning about the dunes up close and getting to some hidden spots some other visitors can't see, this is pretty unbeatable. Okay, let's look at some other places to visit up here. And speaking of places missed by other tourists, the area around Tottori has some excellent hidden gems in easy reach. About an hour away, we've got Kuroyoshi, a historic castle town packed with merchant buildings and classic warehouses with those white walls. One of the townhouses here is over 250 years old, so if you take a stroll around these streets, it will feel like you've properly gone back in time. If you're a manga fan though, pay attention, because a little bit further along the coast, you can find a small town that's been taken over by characters from the Detective Conan series. You'll find the figures all over the place, and that's because the Gosho Aoyama Manga Factory is also here, a museum about the comic's author. So Tottori isn't just worth visiting for the breathtaking dunes, it's also a fantastic jumping off point for exploring this very underrated part of the country. And if you want more ideas for getting off the beaten track in this part of Japan, check out this video I made up here. See ya.